of our time today is spent addressing your questions. If you haven't written a question on one of those 3x5 cards and you've got a burning question, please do so. And again, send your questions to the center aisle and we'll be picking those questions up. And if you particularly would like one of our presenters to address a question, you might, in your question, address it to that person. So we're looking forward to hearing. As the questions are being gathered, let me start with one that members of the media were asking in advance of today's session, and that is, in a busy legislative session where we have to pass a budget and we have to deal with lots of economic issues, do we think that we have time for our legislators to address local government reform? Yeah, sure.
The answer is of course. You know, apparently I have a much higher view of the estimation of the capacity of our legislators than some other folks. You know, just look at recent years. Look at the number of landmark bills, many of them passed side by side and in budget years that have happened in Indiana. We've got plenty of time to do this, and you know, the Senate devoted a lot of time to it and got it done along with several other important measures. So, to me, of all the concerns we've heard, this one is probably the easiest to deal with. And I would also point out that thanks to Governor Kermit and John and Ian and all the other folks, and for that matter, many folks who've studied, written, and researched these topics before, we didn't just start this whole thought process in January of '09. We've had well over a year of the Commission's work, very open sessions for any citizen who had any interest at all in this, to read and learn, as I know I did, think about how we move forward. So let's give our legislators full credit for being able to walk and chew gum, and, you know, maybe hum a tune at the same time.
Okay. We have a question here about whether or not these reforms will produce any savings. And this questioner says, you know, how will in comparing salaries of elected versus appointed officials, it doesn't appear that it would produce any savings. Who'd like to address that? Jeff?
Our charge from the governor was to look at the structure of local government and not to be focused on what kinds of dollars might be saved as a result of the recommendations that we made. As we got into it and our recommendations were formulated, we believed, and we really believed from the beginning, that as a part of this process, with going from 3,100 units of local government to 1,900, with going from almost 11,000 elected officials to 5,200, that there would be savings as a part of that process. Since then, as the recommendations have been looked at and analyzed, I think that the best study that has been done was by Ball State to look at the recommendations and make a judgment as to whether there would be any savings or not. And they determined that the savings, depending on how much was implemented, would be somewhere between $400 and $600 million per year. And that is, I think, in the ballpark of the kinds of things that, as we were formulating our recommendations, we were getting indications from some of the testimony that people gave and some of the recommendations that they sent us over the internet of examples of the kinds of savings that they thought could be achieved. So again, it was not our purpose to look at savings, but at a time when our state, our local communities, our families are looking for ways to save dollars in any way that they can. If you look at something in the neighborhood of $500 million a year in savings, that's worthwhile.
We're talking real money, yeah.